progressive mindset. Yeah? But the guy doesn't like to drink big beer, he wants to go for a craft beer. So, how do they, consumers, see craft beer? It's actually, the focus is on the product itself. So if you imagine big beer brands, including Heineken, doing great stuff about a lifestyle and about who you want to be, whereas they talk about the product. And with the product, there comes a passion for beer, almost a mission to challenge big beer. And a sense that it's not for the profit. Obviously, this is not true, but the consumers perceive craft brewers as the challengers of the industry who really just want to brew great beer and don't care about the money being made with it. Full of character, distinct point of view. Obviously, we know all the brew dogs of this world. Some of the brands going as far as calling themselves sheep shagger, which is obviously not an option for Heineken because we are responsible. Actually, something that consumers view as a positive of craft beer is that it's not available everywhere, that they have a selective distribution. So you have the feeling of belonging to a secret club of craft beer drinkers. And it's super premium, so if you're a microbrewer, you can charge really 2 to 4 times as much for the very same brew than a big brewer can. When we looked at why are they choosing craft over big beer, what we found is actually boiling down to 2 attributes. First of all, craft beer is authentic. Yeah, we have had a few times during the day mentioning the word authentic as being already a bit shallow or empty. But the truth is that it's handmade, as perceived to be handmade, artisan, made with care and effort, locally brewed, very important. Recommended by a friend, know the brewers. Yeah, so this is this kind of personal personal connection and the feeling of being part of the local community is pretty much one of the drivers. And then, obviously, there's the product I mentioned. Something that big beer hasn't been offering over the last few decades is variety. Yeah? So, really coming up with new tastes that haven't been around for too long, or traditional tastes that come in from another part of the world, really appealing to the very taste buds of the consumer. Something that big beer seems to have forgotten over the last couple of decades again. Yeah? So it's authentic, it's offering variety, and basically if we compare the two, big beer and craft beer, we're going to see a really polarized picture because in every dimension of the mix, they're almost the opposite of each other. So what is big beer about? We have a standardized product, so if you go and taste Heineken in the 192 countries where it's currently distributed, it's probably going to taste pretty much the same everywhere. Pretty good, but very unchallenging taste. It's been fine-tuned to cater to a really, really broad appeal and a broad spectrum of consumers. Whereas if you look at any craft beer, basically, it's always experimental, although we see that already 50% of craft beer is IPA. Yeah? And so basically also craft consumers are slowly but surely settling for the more known taste. And it's pretty unpredictable sometimes. Yes? First of all, you don't know the brand, so you're choosing something from a Scottish brewer. It says IPA, so it gives you sort of a direction, but you don't know for sure what to expect. In terms of packaging, all of the big brands' packaging has been developed over 100 years, plus minus. Yeah? And it's been tested, you know, before every change, you test it 5 times, and then still you don't change it because you find that the consumers is not interested, and it's obviously cost optimized. Whereas small brewers go for really outraging packaging, meaning Brewdog's Punk IPA or the already mentioned Sheepshagger. It's something that is almost a parody of big beer quite a lot of times. If you look at communication, as I said, mostly we communicate lifestyle with big beer. We are just starting to talk about the product. So far, really the mainstream was that the brand delivers you an experience, some values, most of them pretty everyday, like friendship, masculinity, etc. Whereas craft beer is talking about the product, always. Yeah? So there's always like some kind of revolution and mission in the background. But the way they talk to you is they say, okay, we are using this kind of yeast, we are using that kind of hops, and we are getting more from wherever. And our mission is really to destroy big beer. So we saw corporate sucks. This is the underlying mindset of the craft brewer. If you look at Brewdog, they launched a campaign. Yeah? So I'm going to come back to that, what is meant by campaign for a craft brewer. So what they were using as a slogan was "This punk's for you," yeah, which is in UK and in Ireland, Bud was using "This Bud's for you," and they literally in one of their online videos they smashed, for instance, 9 bottles of Stella Artois with a bowling ball very directly. So there's this revolution mission, but it's always about the product. They're extremely low cost. So as it was mentioned, these guys they would shoot a commercial with a GoPro. Yeah, we are shooting commercials sometimes for 1 million euros. It does happen, but even like in a small local, the minimum cost for a commercial would be something like 200,000 euros. These guys shoot it with their iPhone, post it on the web, and there it goes. We use still mass media, although Heineken already this year is going to spend more in digital than in mass media. So this is going to be the first year. And by the way, working for Heineken means living in a digital paradise. So you don't have to convince anybody about increasing your digital spending or going digital, because we've been pioneering going digital already quite a long time back. And we're talking digital. Also, some stuff that we are pioneering is, for instance, e-commerce and direct to the consumer. So when Oliver was presenting that Theo is coming, or it's already there in France, made by Crooks, the machine. We also have our own draft experience that we can offer to consumers. It's called the Sub, also made by Crooks. And by the way, Dolce Gusto by Nestle is also made by Crooks. So it makes me wonder if these guys go to bed with anyone who gives them a proper offer. So we are still in the expensive mass media territory, and they are exclusively almost digital. And when we're talking about digital, the way the whole craft movement has been facilitated by actually 2 big players is social drinking. Yeah. So I don't know how many of you are using the app Untapped. Yeah, good. So if you're one of over 1 million users, and the latest number on Untapped I have from 2014. That's when they got the data into the 1 million user mark. So it's an application where you go into a pub or at home, you take your beer, take a photo, write a review, and By the way, Untapped has just announced a couple of months ago that it's going to be a subsidiary of NextGlass. Who's familiar with NextGlass? NextGlass is an application that was originally more for wine, and this application works in a way that you are recording what you are drinking, also kind of review and social, and actually based on your taste profile, so you write, okay, I drank this wine, I liked it a lot, and then based on this, and based on other people's reviews, it recommends you your next wine to be chosen. And they extended also into beer, and Untapped has become a subsidiary of NextGlass. The other big platform is Rate Beer. I don't know if you know Rate Beer. They also have an app, but primarily they started as a website. They have reviewed already, I think, over 100,000 beers. Yeah, from I don't know how many users. I couldn't find the data, but the thing is that what these two guys do, Rate Beer and Untapped, NextGlass, is that they fully expose us, and they fully expose the small brewers as well. So they democratize the landscape of the industry. And what they do as well is that they force you to brew good beer. Yeah. So if you want to take on the challenge with craft beer, you have to brew excellent beer. Yeah. You still have a problem with authenticity, because you can brew as good a beer as any small brewer. Still, if your brand is one of the big brands, you're on a slightly lower shelf in the consumer's mind. And this is something that is very difficult to overcome. Nevertheless, it's not impossible, even for a big established brand. You can do stuff that can convince these consumers. Obviously, when you do this, you have to start from the real life experience. And this is why I said that my presentation is less about digital than all the others, because what these online platforms do is basically sharing the very real life experience, and you cannot tackle this by simply going digital and brewing the same stuff. What you need to do is to brew stuff that is interesting and market stuff that is really talking to these guys and really can pick up the challenge. Okay? So what can you do as a big brewer? Obviously, and also John mentioned in his presentation, one thing you can do is you acquire craft brewers. Yeah? Obviously, this can be only done via partnership. So if you fully acquire a craft brewer and you integrate them into your organization, you lose the authenticity case immediately. So you're basically killing the brand in the eyes of the craft consumer. So what we did, for instance, with Lagunitas, one of the biggest craft brewers, extremely fast-growing craft brewers in the United States, is that we get a partnership. This is also what our competition does. So ABI Ebev also has in the different parts of the world different partnerships with craft brewers. So this is one of the ways. You can launch your own craft beers. So this is what our Polish friends did. That on their big upper mainstream brand, let's say, they launched a range of craft or crafty beers. The problem is that you cannot charge obviously the same amount of money for this, because whereas there's an APA, I can tell you that this APA, American Pale Ale, is as good as any 20 craft brewers APA. Nevertheless, consumers who are into pale ales are not ready to pay the same amount of money, because it's simply very cheap. And then there are the two last options: the brand and market non-craft beers, as essentially craft. Obviously, there you are dealing with the authenticity challenge again. variety is a different kind of challenge. It's a challenge on supply chain because big beer is, our supply chain has been optimized again over decades to brew big batches, huge quantities, post-optimized, and getting it to the most places in the universe. So this is how we've been working over almost 100 years. Nevertheless, it still can be done, as I'm going to show. And then protect the image of mainstream beer attack craft. This is a tricky thing. So I don't know if you've seen Budweiser's commercial, really very going tough on craft beer as such in the US. It's backfired totally. In the Czech Republic, SAB, what they did is that they launched a fake craft brand called Patron, and actually they went into pubs, they put it on tap, called it Patron. People were excited, oh my god, a small Czech brewery, fantastic. And then they showed them that it's actually the biggest mainstream brand in the country with a special variant. Did not work. Actually, they got media coverage, but what came back is that, okay, so you did a specialty, you called it Patron, you fooled us, but actually what you're selling every day is still the same shit. Yeah? So it can backfire. And actually, what I'm going to show you the case of this very product there in the bottom left corner, where we said, how can we breach this authenticity deficit, and how can we offer a much more intriguing taste to the consumers? And we found retro. Yeah? But the underlying consumer insight was, when talking about consumers, how are they attracted to craft and why they hate big beer, was that actually all the big brands started somewhere in history as a small brand, but then they abandoned their roots and they became sellouts, yeah, and became a corporate monster, and then they started to dilute the beer. In Central Eastern Europe, where there were big acquisitions in the 90s, for instance, also by Heineken, but also for instance in the Czech Republic by SAB, there is this kind of perception that the evil capitalists came in and they screwed up our beer, which used to be good, but not anymore because these greedy guys, they cost-optimized it and destroyed it. So what we said that we're going to go retro with this particular brand, which is called Despre, the Golden Pheasant, which is the leading upper mainstream / lower premium beer in the country of Slovenia. The thing is that Zlatý Bažant doesn't have a long history. Yeah? All the brands in beer claim a history of at least 100 years old or 140. We have brands that claim 1,000 years old, African, by the way. So this brand has been around only for a short time, but it recognizes the best beer in Slovakia, but with the slight undertone that it's been destroyed by the bigger evil corporate ingredients. So what we did is that we went back in time and we found a brew log from 1973. This is the oldest brew log that we found in the brewery, and basically started to brew the beer according to that. And this is basically craft, as it is. It's a lager, so it's not an IPA, which is a slight disadvantage. But within the lager world, this is as good as good a beer as you can brew within the lager world, and it's brewed really extremely old school. So we built up this whole story, and we built up the proposition around this retro perception, going back to the inside. It used to be good, but it got destroyed. And then when we talk about influencers, so there are two things that we did with influencers. The budget was pretty close to zero. The first thing is there are influencers that we keep on forgetting them. Yeah? Experts, perceived experts. So for instance, if I tell anyone that I meet that I work for Heineken, they immediately ask me, okay, so what is a good beer? Although I'm as far from a master brewer as I can be. I work in marketing. I've always worked in marketing. Obviously, I know how beer is being brewed, but I'm perceived in my environment as an expert. Even a taxi driver say, I work for Heineken, okay, recommend me a good beer. So we have in Slovakia, a small country, 650 employees, and with their families, quite a sizable amount of influencers that in their environment, and when going digital, in a broader environment, are deemed and accepted as experts for beer. So first of all, what we did was to enthuse them. So even before we launched the beer, we started to build up a story with our employees. Even before we ever launched, we received requests per Facebook, when is the retro beer coming up? They didn't know the name of the time, but they knew that something like this is coming. Before we launched, we already in the pubs, people were asking for the specialty because the word spread. The other thing we did is that we sent unlabeled samples to influencers. Obviously, in every country there are beer magazines. In Slovakia, it's called Ebev about beer, and it creates a whole community. So there's a big community around it. And we sent to these guys a couple of bottles to write a review. And the reactions were totally enthusiastic. So my leadership in the Czech Republic and Slovakia belongs to Pilsner as well. So every lager beer is benchmarked against Pilsner as well. The very first review that came out was that, okay, Heineken is preparing something that we don't know what it's going to be, but we tasted it, and it's better than Pilsner. So already we built up a huge anticipation with influencers at close to zero budget. Obviously, then we had events when we unveiled the whole concept and introduced the new variant. But the first initial impulses that created the expectation in the market were almost fulfilled. Okay. And then what we did as well, and it also ties back to digital, is that we created a pop-up pub. Actually, it wasn't branded when we started to communicate it over Facebook. It's just, okay, there's going to be a pub that flies you back to 1973 in the center of Bratislava. Very small digital campaign. Like we created the event until it basically almost spread itself, and it became a phenomenon. So we had thousands of visitors, and in digital the echo was fantastic. If you ask me on return on investment, etc., I don't have the numbers top of mind, but it really became a cultural phenomenon within Bratislava. Obviously, we created a full campaign around it, where we spend more on digital than on classical media. But actually, what I would like to say is that this is a phenomenon, craft is a phenomenon that's been facilitated by digital, but digital is not the answer. So other things to do with this untapped and rare beer that would come to my mind than going to Kazakhstan and had 100,000 fake reviewers. Obviously, it's not the way to go. What you have to do with these modern, digitally rooted people is that you really have to provide them the experience that they expect, and then your digital footprint is going to follow. It can't be done the other way around. Obviously, this is something where we connected the real world with the digital world. I don't know if you remember from the old times where one of the key communication tools used to be these shopping windows, especially in the Central Eastern Europe. Shopping windows used to be big in the 70s, 80s. And what we did is that in the center, we created like this retro shopping window. But what we did, and it became a phenomenon. Like people came really looking and they were taking photos. So what we did is that we created a very simple online application to design the shopping window for us based on their own things at home, or based on their own design and their own perception of time passed. And then they could post them online, and then the winning one that got the most likes, we really created, we brought it back to the physical world. We had thousands of designs. Slovakia is a small country, so if I talk like thousands, it means if you compare it to the US, maybe millions, because it's only a country with 5.4 million inhabitants, 4.5 million between the case of in the US, it would be like a small town. But for us, it's a country. So again, connecting the physical and the digital world worked for us perfectly. And actually, I'm just clicking through the campaign. What we did in online, these are the very classical Facebook posts, extreme amount of likes. But what is more important is that we had extremely good consumer reaction. So working with big brands and looking at the reaction of people is mostly leaves you a bit depressed, because there's not a lot of enthusiasm about it. So you get much more haters than peer advocates on your Facebook. This was the first time, okay, actually the second time, when the overwhelming reactions were not only positive, but actually extremely enthusiastic. So, like every beer drinker's dream come true, heaven on earth, etc., which obviously helped us spread the word further. What also helped us big time in digital is that we had out of stocks. So the sales initially, because we managed to create the expectations so high, we couldn't catch up with the demand, the production, so we had out of stock. So what we did is that also in retro fashion, in Central Eastern Europe during the 70s and 80s, most of the stuff wasn't available. You know? So all the time you had out of stock of everything, you know? Toilet paper, a couple of things. You know? So what we did is that, okay, this beer is being brewed for 6 weeks, which is one of the key product attributes and key reasons to believe. So unfortunately, for a while, they're not going to be available. And the reactions were again extremely positive. They were asking for information when and where, how it's going to be available. So we basically managed via smart digital and also point of sale communication turn this disadvantage to our advantage. So all in all, what I wanted to demonstrate with this case is that a whole industry is being challenged. The challenge is not coming from digital, but it's being facilitated by digital, by these democratized sharing of opinions and being exposed. And the way to react is it roots in the very physical world, it roots in the consumer, so you have to understand the underlying insight that drives consumers towards this or that trend, and then react in a credible way. Thank you very much.